Welcome to Voice of Reason with Nathan. In today's episode, I'm really excited to have a special guest with us, Naomi. She's a dietitian with many years of experience, and we're looking at the topic today of the crossover between mental, physical, and spiritual health. And really excited about this topic. It's something that when clients come to me with their mental health conditions and wanting assistance with life's issues, it's something that I do actually focus on very early on in our sessions together, looking at diet, sleep, and exercise as one of the keys to helping people in their recovery journey. And so it's just such a blessing and privilege to have you here today, Naomi. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience in the health field?
Yes, well, thank you for having me on, Nathan. And just a quick thing about myself. So I graduated with a double degree in dietetics and nutrition and dietetics, I should say, and another degree in applied sciences with the major on health promotion. So health and nutrition and that whole field has always been of interest to me. And basically upon graduating, I worked in hospital settings, various hospital settings, some health clinics, some actual weight loss sports nutrition clinics. And then I ended up working in what I consider an amazing job for quite some time in a private health company where I was a health coach, a dietitian, and I got to travel around and talk to a lot of different kinds of people in different industries, and just working on all different kinds of health related topics and education.
That's really interesting. And I think a lot of our listeners will be like, wow, what does a dietitian do, say in the hospital environment? What were you doing there?
So most dietitians are working in a hospital setting in some form or other. They basically work with disease prevention and also working with the other allied health in the hospital setting. So for example, a lot of diseases are diet related, and there's things that we do that can really aggravate when, say for example, in the gut. So we have so many digestive issues with Crohn's, with ulcerative colitis. I'm thinking of some common ones that I was part of. And then you can go into other things with heart health. And there's so many things we do with our diet that can actually make things worse or even create these diseases in a way. We can talk about type 2 diabetes. So a lot of these things, I like to explain it like this. So you could be born and then your lifestyle, so say you're born with really, really poor genetics with being prone to, say, type 2 diabetes. And so I like to say your gun is loaded when you're born, but then you pull the trigger with your lifestyle. And so if you're having a lifestyle that's just going to basically create that type 2 diabetes to come to life in a way, that's a poor way to put it, but you're actually creating that problem for yourself. So you don't ever have to live with that, but certain diseases that the way we live and our lifestyle can actually aggravate and make things worse or even, I guess, awaken them in our body.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's something, as a psychologist, that's kind of what I've noticed as well with many clients is, and what the research suggests as well, say personality factors. If someone's personality is wired a certain way, they'll be more susceptible to feeling a certain way or being more sensitive to certain issues. So they might be more sensitive, say, to more of an anxiety or an anxious state. Doesn't mean they have to be a victim to that. They can actually learn strategies and ways to overcome those emotions and thinking a certain way. It's just helpful to be aware of, like you were saying, some of these more susceptibilities or genetic factors that can kind of lead to that. We don't have to be a victim to our genes though, hey?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, we can do about it, both physically and mentally as well. And I love that you're really about empowering people and helping them overcome these challenges. What makes you, I can see the passion in when you're talking about these issues, what makes you so passionate about what you do?
So it goes back to when I was a teenager. So I struggled with my weight since a teenager, and I found myself developing poor relationships with food. And by 19, I was diagnosed with anorexia, and I basically I had a lot of issues that I took to emotional eating, but because I also didn't want to be really big, I basically just it was just a way that I could control that situation, the way I couldn't deal with my emotions. So having that anorexia and then eventually overcoming that with a lot of psychology and therapy. Unfortunately, though, I didn't heal my mind, which is where it all began. And the food was just the anorexia was just a manifestation of my head. And so I didn't deal with that. So then I developed a very bad relationship with binging, emotional eating, binging, and sort of a bulimic relationship with food for a very long period of time. And it became a real issue when I had children, because it's hard to live this kind of a lifestyle when you have children and you want to also be healthy for them. So a lot of things, I went through a lot with it, and it took me over a decade, but I finally got answers and I found a way out of what I call a dieting prison. And now I'm passionate about sharing that with other women, especially because I see it all the time in when we speak and how people are around food. And it is part of our Western society as well, our culture. We deem foods good, bad, I've been naughty this weekend, or good, and so it is part of even in our subconscious. But you don't have to live that way. You can be free from what I call the dieting prison. And so I'm just passionate because it's just knowledge, giving women knowledge and then empowering them how to get out of that. And it's possible. So that's why I'm passionate about it, because it is a way you don't have to live anymore. Yes.
That's really powerful. And I'm glad that you've come through that experience and to where you are today, and obviously giving back to people that have gone through what you've gone through, but also in a different way as well. Not everyone's gone through that, but certainly I think we can all relate to having this kind of dieting prison mindset in one degree or another. I know for me personally, thinking about, chocolate as kind of like it's a real treat, that kind of has a, almost like a negative connotation to it. Like, I only have a little bit because, this is bad for me kind of thing. But that's kind of that mindset that you're talking about, isn't it? The connection between physical and mental health and how we think about things is so important. You want to maybe just elaborate a bit on what is the dieting prison that you mentioned there? What does that mean?
So it's the yo-yo that, I mean, how many people, women talk, it's not as, men don't talk about this as much. Partly, I think, because, our society puts a lot more pressure on, I guess, women's appearance than men. And from a young age, my daughter's only 9, and she asked me about diets when she was 8, I think. It just came up in the school, and it wasn't a big deal yet, but my son it's not even in his radar yet, and he's older than her. So I think that is part of it, our society, that what we do to women, it's women's choice if we take it, but you know what I mean. But also, just that pressure. And so for women, they put this pressure on themselves, and honestly, they just do it wrong from the beginning. And so they think that part of being good, I guess, and being on a diet is sometimes a positive thing, even though no one really wants to be on a diet deep down. But they want to because they feel like they're doing something, and because they don't understand, they don't have the real knowledge, they get little sound bites off media, or they read in a magazine, and then they think, I can't have carbs. That's it. And so that then changes, the trajectory of their diet for so long. And then it's really hard to renew, I guess, their mindset on that. And so there's so many things in play into why that happens and that relationship with food. But I think a really big part of it is just knowledge. People just don't have it. And they hear little things, especially now with Google, Netflix documentaries and things, and people think they're an expert when they watch something and they believe it's gospel. And so it just creates, and because the yo-yo I'm saying is they get onto something, a diet, and then it's not sustainable, it's not something they enjoy, it's not something they want to do, and they eventually will fall off. And then they think it's their fault, they didn't have enough willpower, they didn't have the motivation that's, mysteriously out there. So then they fall off. Well, they can't stay on there long enough. They can't because, they want to lose weight, and so then they go back on this, and it's constant. And every time they do it, they will typically actually gain weight because there's reasons behind that. And so then they have to actually lose weight. And then it's just this constant cycle that you can stop. you can stop it, and get back to where you want to be. But it's just knowledge, really.
Yeah, no, and I think what you're saying there is really important. I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this process, this vicious cycle that plays out. And I always say to people that, your awareness of an issue is the key to change. So having an awareness that something's actually wrong, the stages of change model. It's kind of that pre-contemplation, then moving that to contemplation, and you become aware that, oh, there's actually something going on here. And I do hope that as people listen to this, if you have these issues, stay tuned, because we are going to give you some strategies and things to help you come out of this vicious cycle, this dieting prison that Naomi is talking about. And the things there that you mentioned are really key, like the yo-yoing, the guilt that you can feel around food, having this like really unhealthy relationship with food, emotionally, mentally, and then obviously physically with what you eat, how you eat, and when you eat, all that sort of stuff. And I think it reminds me a lot of, the biopsychosocial spiritual model that we use. Well, not spiritual, I always add on spiritual. And it is becoming more commonplace now, and research evidence, obviously, the spiritual component to that model, but, the medical model of health. So biopsychosocial, and really that understanding that food also plays a key role in our health and how we approach it. What does a healthy relationship with food look like then? So we know what a dieting prison feels and looks like. What does a healthy one look like?
Well, basically just viewing food as it's amoral. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just food. And it's funny because in some cultures, it's a very Western culture thing. When you look at other cultures surrounding food, they don't have the same. I mean, I guess it's because we have the luxury in the West of having an abundance in our food supply, and not being worried and having the means to purchase all this food and consume it. And so for us, it is very much a good relationship is where you see food as nourishing. It is nourishing for our bodies. We have taste buds for a reason, and there's different taste buds on our tongue, and they're there for enjoyment and pleasure. Food is pleasure and enjoyment, and it is, but at the end of the day, viewing it as fuel as well. And you're hungry, you need to nourish your body. And so you can nourish it with many things. There are things that are better than others that will provide better nourishment. But just viewing it as that, basically, in a nutshell. It's not good.
That's really good. And what comes to my mind as well is how we do the same with our feelings. And I wonder if there's a deeper level of that, because, even your emotions are amoral. It's what you do with your feelings that then lead to certain behaviors and things that create that negative consequences. So I guess as someone who has a healthy relationship with food, what does that look like in terms of, I guess, like with the emotions? How should you feel about food then? Say it's chocolate, like I mentioned before.
So I love chocolate, and I think, so how would I say to consume something like a chocolate that's considered a bad food in our society? So first of all, it would be just eat it and realize you don't like. I think the best way would be, get a little bit of chocolate, and if you enjoy it, eat it. As you're eating it, actually sit there and enjoy it. Don't do other things. Don't watch TV. I think it's terrible how in a lot of people in the West, they'll watch TV while they're eating, and things like that I think are not good for even having a good relationship with food. But be present and enjoy that chocolate. Enjoy how it makes you feel. It's a good thing, and that's it. It's done now. And I don't think we have to overcomplicate it. That's even if you're trying to lose weight and things like that, you include it in your diet and have it as part of your day and in just small amounts. And you'll realize very soon as you encourage, okay, so you have to do this slowly. And this is where I coach with women. This is where we do it. It's personalized for each person, If chocolate's your thing, then we work on chocolate. If pizza's your thing and you feel guilty, but you love pizza, then we work with pizza first. You know, you don't just eat all the food all at once. That's not good either. But it's basically, just
I was going to ask, sorry to interrupt, but I was going to ask that, like, say we're talking about people that, you know, eat only a little bit and they feel bad. What about people that eat a lot? On the other side of the spectrum, how do you kind of balance that? And what you're saying there is, like, you know, it is about both finding that balance in a sense.
Yeah, and look, it will happen. So it's not like you're going to go from, so many of us are emotional eaters as women. And so it's not like you're going, and men really though, they just don't like to put labels on these things, you know. So many of us though, it's going to happen. And this is the key, that you can't view it as good or bad. It's a journey, and it's like, you know, the share market. It has ups and downs, right? But eventually over time it goes up. And so the up is your success, you know, in overcoming this yo-yoing, this dieting prison, all that. And so you're going to have days when you remove the boundary that I guess when you open up that prison, right, that you've put in yourself in, you will have days where you will do things you would have eaten more than you needed to, and you've eaten and you felt guilty. That's okay, because it takes time to change your mindset, you know, renewing that mindset. It's not going to flick overnight. I recall the first time that I'm not really into ice cream, but when I started doing this, and I basically said, look, there is nothing wrong with me going to having an ice cream at an ice cream parlor with my family. And I took my kids and my husband, and I remember sitting in the car and crying. It's absurd to me now, crying and saying, I can't eat this ice cream. Why? I just couldn't do it, because then I was afraid that if I sat and ate an ice cream with my family and enjoyed it, what would happen then? Would I gain 10 kilos overnight, or would I I couldn't handle it. I needed to put some boundaries in my mind, but that kept me bound. And so in a way, forcing, and this is why it has to be very personalized for everyone. But this is where, you know, you say, no, today I'm going to eat this ice cream. I'm going to enjoy it, and see for yourself. You can say no then to the cookies and the other things, and practically not having them in the house helps as well. But doing little things like that, and realizing that you don't suddenly, you know, your body doesn't just fall into the ground in a hole. And it is just that, it's chipping away at that mindset over time. I mean, I could talk about this for ages, but basically we have explained it.
No, absolutely. And look, I think that eating mindfully is so important. So what you're saying there is not just, you know, enjoying those foods that we enjoy, that we do find pleasurable. And because this is the thing, I think sometimes with food, like you were saying, it's amoral, and we think it's bad to feel pleasure from eating something enjoyable like chocolate or ice cream or whatever, just for the pleasure of it. But then I do think of, you know, why do we have taste buds, you know? Why did God bless us with the ability to enjoy these different flavors and things? You know, because this is a part of a balanced lifestyle, and enjoying not just the nutritious aspects of food, like you know, the protein, carbs, fats, and understanding those macronutrients and micro, but then also appreciating the pleasurable aspects of food. And you know, I think I'm thinking of, you know, classic shows like MasterChef and My Kitchen Rules. You know, there's that aspect to it as well. But that key that you were saying about eating mindfully really brings home the connection between the mental aspect or the psychology, and then the physical aspect of actually eating it, but doing it with awareness and appreciating, enjoying it, and, you know, taking out the guilt and the condemnation, you know, and being aware of that negative thought process that you, as you said, will keep you crying in the car from eating an ice cream, you know, and stopping you from enjoying being able to do that with your kids and your family. You know, it can really get to a place where, as you say, it's a prison, and it just holds up in so much bondage. It's horrible. And I've heard this. Yeah, you go.
You go on.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I've heard this statistic. Tell me if this is true, but about 95% of people that lose weight from a diet will actually regain it in the next few months or years.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes. Diets are not the problem. It's keeping the fat off. We don't have a weight issue, the diet issue. We have a keeping the fat off issue, because it's not a lifestyle. It's a diet. And there's, you know, there's a reason why this happens, because there's money in it, you know. And so people don't care. They want to give you their program, they want to give you the fat loss, but they don't care what happens in 2 years. The stats are, yes, correct. By 3 years, 95% have regained, and 2/3 of that have gained more than when they started. So they're worse off. And the health implications of that are enormous, especially now science is showing us that you can actually create new fat cells. And the health, like the problems of that, the ramifications of that are huge. So you can actually be morbidly obese and genuinely have a slow metabolism and hunger and all these other issues. And it's just because of, we've created this in ourselves. Unfortunately, we didn't know what we were doing, but it is true. Diets, they don't work. And one thing I wanted to say when I interrupted you, I'm sorry. Just one thing, I put this on my fridge. I put this on my pantry. I put it everywhere. I really did, in my house. I can have it if I want it. Do I want it? Do I really need it? So I had that line all over my house, and every time I went, and I still say that to myself now. So, you know, I love chocolate. I love sweets, not that many sweets, but chocolate's really my only thing. And I say to myself, though, I can have it if I want it. Do I really feel like it? You know, do I actually really want it? And that mindfulness that you're saying, that, you know, because then you choose. Because, you know, I did say you're going to have moments with the food relationship where this takes time to basically change how your thinking is. So you'll have times when you overeat. You have times when you eat just too much in one day that's not necessary for your body, and you're not giving yourself a lot of good micronutrients, you know, vitamins and minerals for your health and immunity. But over time, you will find that when you've sort of let go and you've eaten all the food, and you know what I mean, you eventually get to that point of, okay, it's a mental satisfaction. And I feel like, yeah, I can have that, but no, I don't want that now. It won't really get me towards my goals. And that to me was liberating. And I find that you're liberating with a lot of women I've talked to.
And something my wife Jess is actually really amazing. She gained a lot of weight in pregnancy, with our second one especially, and found it quite challenging to reduce that. But what she would actually do is, say after she's eaten a meal, she'll wait 20 minutes before eating anything else.
Yeah.
Because often after you eat a meal, you're like, oh, I want some more of this, I want more of that. So her personal strategy, and like you were saying about yours, is that she'll just wait and kind of, again, eating mindfully, just being aware of what am I eating? Do I really need it? Do I really want it? And often after waiting 20 minutes, you kind of, you know, I'm fine now. It's just my body's found that balance or whatever it's, you know, so it's, I think just people have different ways of doing it. I really appreciate your way of putting it on the fridge or on the wall. So just being a mental cue that you can use, I think that's really important. That's great. What are your thoughts on, just briefly, on this whole movement now towards, you know, being aware of like these macronutrients, like keto diets, all these different, you know, diets? Are they fads? Are they good? Are they bad? What are your general thoughts around that?
So far, I mean, I haven't lived thousands of years, but so far nothing new is under the sun in terms of dieting, nutrition, science, things like that. Food science, I should say, regarding the nutrition and everything like that. Food science is growing enormously, but no, keto, that's not a new thing. They're all the same, but new bows. Atkins is not a new thing. They get recycled typically in the health industry. If you sort of keep an eye on it, about every 10, 15 years, it gets recycled. There's, I guess, a new generation coming up of, you know, younger teenage girls and things like that. So it's newer to them. They think, oh, this is new. And when you hear the explanation, like with keto, there's nothing wrong with keto. Keto has actually been shown to be amazing results, if, for example, with epilepsy, and a few things like that. But as a fat loss, it is not superior. Same with Atkins, like low carb diet, South Beach diet. I'm trying to think of some common ones. Veganism is now the new one. And all these diets, a lot of these...
Just the veganism side of things as well, that has a lot of the morality side to it. Like, yes, meat is evil, and so it carries a lot of, it's driving this guilt and shame around that aspect of it, which is interesting. But sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, that I think on that note, it's something that's actually really getting annoying me with the whole religion. And I think as our society, I don't want to get too philosophical, and I hate it when you're the psych, so I'm not going to get into it. But um, as we become much more secular, I've noticed that you know people need they need something to worship, they need something. And so now they've gone into, basically diet is now religion, it's the new thing. And so you actually are superior to me if you don't eat meat. And they've
Yeah.
created this real, and then they say there, of course, there's health benefits to it, but really there actually are not. When you look at it objectively, I believe personally from a scientific basis that our bodies are made to have meat, to consume meat. Now, there's varying levels of that, but at the end of the day, you can live a healthy lifestyle if you're a vegan. But if you're doing it purely for, that's the way you want to live, and you think it's better for your health, that's fine. But again, I come back to sustainability. If you love your meat, then don't cut it out. It's not inherently bad for you.
And I know there's some even Christian denominations that believe in a certain way of eating, and they do hold that morality and that superiority, like we're really following the best way, not just spiritually worshiping God through Jesus, but now we're also eating the Christian way, the way that they perceive it, and it does come across as that superiority, the morality. And yeah, it's just as you're saying that, I'm just thinking about those aspects of it as well, where we've kind of turned it into a religion, or a religious aspect of it for sure. And the more secular we become as a society, in a general sense, the more that we are looking for things to spiritualize, to worship. And I even think of these TV shows like MasterChef and My Kitchen Rules I mentioned before. They have become absolutely billion-dollar industries, and just incredible, like people, this whole restaurant industry, and nothing against it. I think everything in moderation, again, not trying to put it down either, but just aware of how food has become such a worshipped object almost, this whole thing. And it does carry that implication of, I'm not even sure how to phrase that, but yeah, it is definitely interesting just talking about it.
It is. And look, with diets, again, people really don't like it when I say it, but it just comes down to money, and there's people promoting diets all the time, and they're doctors, and people think that if you're wearing a lab coat, if you're a doctor, a medical doctor, that you mean the best, you have the best intentions. And I'm sorry, but that's not the real world. And so just because a doctor says this is now the way to eat, when you hear this is the only way, everything else is bad, run. Because there is no such thing. There's no blanket rule. We all have different bodies. We look different. We can eat differently. And so I don't have a problem with diets. I have a problem if you're doing it, if you don't like it. There's some people I know that love eating a super high-fat diet. They don't miss carbs. Then eat keto if you want. You don't have to label it keto. You may naturally be eating that way anyway. Go for it. You may not like carbs. Don't eat them. But if that's your personal preference, I know a doctor, a specific doctor, that he is just super, super busy, and he's a research doctor, and he can only eat one meal a day because he doesn't want to, disturb his thinking, and he's experimenting. So for him, keto works really well because he just gets to eat that one meal a day, and he's satiated the whole day. He doesn't have an issue with his glucose going down, and his brain not thinking well. So I have no problem with that. It's just when you put the morality around it and you say that your way is the only way. And as you said, 95% fail.
Yeah, wow. That's a startling statistic, I must say. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's seriously that. It's kind of like, imagine if you had a business model, and you say that 95% of what we're doing is going to fail. Like you wouldn't bother. Like you'd figure out, okay, let's do something different. But we seem to keep getting trapped in this dieting yo-yo diet prison that you mentioned. And I think a key part to that as well is how exercise plays a role in it. Yeah. I wonder your thoughts on that. Like, how does exercise play into this? And how do you kind of have a healthy relationship with that and with the whole food aspect?
Yeah, so exercise does play a big role in health. And it's just, I view it as you've got a toolbox regarding your health, regarding fat loss, and just health in general, your body health. And exercise is one of those tools. Diet is another one of those tools, what you consume. And exercise, when we say exercise, some people think you have to be running, sweating on a treadmill, and doing something you absolutely hate. It doesn't have to be that way. In fact, all exercise, when I say that, you know, it's a broad thing for just moving your body. And there are some major health benefits to it. And there's some things you can't even change. As you get older, you can't change your age and you can't change your gender, but you can change how much exercise you do, right? And that stops a really big syndrome of sarcopenia, which is basically your muscles. You're losing your muscle mass. And so just by increasing how much, even just walking, you stop that from happening. And that's actually a really big thing that can plague older people. And osteoporosis. There's so many things that we can do as we age. So I'm not even talking aesthetics here, you know, what we care about when you're younger and things like that, but even just pure health and how long you live and the quality of life that you live. Just by walking, that's exercise. Just by walking every day, you're carrying around, you know, maybe 70, 80, 90 kilos of weight on your body. That's effort for your bones and your muscles. And so things like that, you have to think of exercise as a broad thing. So if you don't enjoy being inside a gym environment, go in the outdoors, hiking. You know, I'm in Colorado and people hike here a lot. And that's a form of exercise. They don't call it their exercise. It's an activity. You know, bike riding, playing sport, playing basketball with your kids or swimming. There's so much that exercise can be. It doesn't have to be, you know what I mean, in the gym if you don't like that. And there's so many benefits to it, you know, VO2 max, increasing your heart health. Like your heart's a muscle, and people have to visualize that it's a muscle. And because we can see muscles, you know, biceps, people can think of bicep muscles. And how do they get bigger and stronger? You have to use them. And it's the same with your heart. The more you increase your heart rate, you're actually making your tissue stronger. And that will do you well as you age. And that alone, again, it's a health thing. It's nothing to do with aesthetics and how you look. And another big thing with tying it in exercise to what you're saying with dieting and nutrition and all that, it does help to maintain your weight. So, you know, and that's, you can't use it as a crutch, because then we can get into, and I've seen a lot of women and myself, I went down that path. You can't use it to, if you don't exercise, then, you know, you have to do 2 hours a day. Otherwise, that's not good. And we can get out of that. There's ways you can get out of that. But if you've lost some weight and then you want to keep that weight off, a good way of doing it is just starting a bit of walking every day, or bike riding, or some form of exercise. And it's energy expenditure, you know, and so you're burning up energy, and our bodies are made to be active, and we live sedentary lives now. And so in a way, we do have to structure in something, unless you have an active lifestyle already.
Yeah, that's really good. And I've heard it said you can't exercise your way to a healthy body or a healthy lifestyle if you have an unhealthy diet. So you're talking there about the balance again between exercising, and really enjoyed how you talked about it, like just enjoying it, you know, doing something you actually enjoy to do, not forcing yourself to go to a gym. That's not your thing, or you have to go for a run. You can do different ways of doing that depending on your lifestyle, your interests, your passions, all that sort of thing. And something I've noticed since having children, my wife and I have noticed that, especially for her as well, because I tend to do a lot of weightlifting, different body weight exercise and things anyway, but she's noticed that her arms have gotten quite strong, and she's actually got some biceps happening just by picking the kids up every day and carrying them around here and there. It's actually pretty amazing, and you wouldn't normally think that that's exercise, but again, that is a form of exercise for sure. So just appreciating those different ways that we all get forms of it, you know, in one way or another. Yeah, that's really important, Naomi. And yeah, you go.
Yeah, that's the thing I like to say, because let me just tell you one thing, if I have the time, that I had a client a few months ago that she texted me about a month ago, and she is in her 70s. her whole life. She's dieted, yo-yoed, and she's gotten quite large. And she would be considered what you call now morbidly obese. And she was forcing her, she hates exercising, but she was forcing herself to do these like high intensity type exercise off YouTube in her house. And it's not the best thing to do with your joints. If that's, you haven't exercised, I wouldn't recommend it. And she's forcing herself and hating it. And she's like, but what do I do? I can't lose the weight. So I said, just follow a few things. And I said, let's cut out all that. And we worked on a few other things, but just regarding the exercise topic. And I said, let's just try to do 10 minutes of walk 3 times a day. You can do it in one hit, or you can do it 10 minutes, you know what I mean? And her lifestyle and her kind of job that she has, 10-minute blocks worked really well. She didn't sweat. She just walked. And 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes back. In 1 month, she'd already lost, I'm converting it because it was an American, about 7 kilos, which is a lot of weight. And there was things we did with her nutrition. But just from getting, and she was thrilled that I don't have to have aching knees and I don't have to jump up and down. And I'm like, no, you don't. You know, you can do just these little things, incorporate them into your day and your life, and you can get results and the health benefits. So just to encourage anyone out there that hates, you know, running and jumping and
No, that's amazing. And my next point was about that exactly. I think we've already touched on that. About I hear you often talk about lifestyle change and like making it sustainable. And you know, I was just going to ask you, like, why do you think that's the most beneficial? I think you've touched on that. That's a great example of what you just mentioned with that client.
Yeah, the only diet and exercise program that is perfect is the one that you can maintain. And that's why the whole, what's the point of having, because is there ideal? There's things that I think are better to eat, absolutely. From a scientific perspective, I think there is a more ideal way to eat. As in, you know, it's better. We do know it's good to have protein in our diet for many reasons. And so fiber and things like that. And so, yes, ideally you could incorporate these macronutrients in a good balance. But what's the point of me telling you this ideal if you're not ever going to feel like you can even hit that? I feel like it's so much better to make things more achievable for people and say, even if you only get 5%, instead of the 90%, at least you're getting that, but you're actually getting that 5%, whereas you're never getting that 90% because you're staying in that cycle because it's too hard. It's too far away from your current, you know, way you're living. And so that's why, to me, that lifestyle mindset, and that's what stops the yo-yo dieting as well, because you're viewing it as a lifelong way to live for good health. And it is lifelong. There's so many things that it doesn't matter what you do over a weekend. It doesn't matter. You know, if you have a binge and you're a client and you call me, I'm going to say, and the sun has come up. It's another day. You move on. Yesterday was the past. You move on. Today's a fresh day. You know, mercies are new every morning. You know? And so it's a new day. What's done is done. And you don't live that way where, oh, I've stuffed it up again. So what? You move on. And then when you have that attitude of it's a lifelong lifestyle journey, then you don't get, you know, it really does stop eventually that cycling. And it's what you do long-term that matters.
And I was going to say that, you know, often as we get older, we kind of appreciate that this is a life journey. It's a marathon, not a race. Yeah. But I've talked with, you know, like you mentioned, 70, 80-year-olds as well. And had the opportunity to help them, you know, transform their lives in different ways. And even depending on, you know, just their life experiences and what they believe and their awareness, they can also get caught up in this race mentality in their diet, in the way that they're trying to change their thought process, their emotions, like anxiety disorders, stuff like that. And kind of, you know, trying to race towards a goal or, you know, something that's not sustainable. So I was going to say age is kind of this great teacher, but it's not necessarily that, is it? It's kind of what you do at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, when they say that whole thing, no, sometimes age, it just ingrains those terrible habits, you know? It doesn't, unless you actively make a change, no.
So I guess talking about that then, what kind of holds back your clients or people that you know And just in general, what holds people back from achieving their health goals?
Mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Mindset's the first thing. Before I address the other main things, it's mindset. You have to view it as a lifestyle. You've got to get, and what ties in with this is be my number two is patience. So people are just super, super impatient, and they just not, and I know I've struggled with this too about patience. They're just not willing to put in the boring, monotonous day-to-day choices. They're not willing to just do that little 10-minute walk every day. Instead, no, they want to go and run a marathon next week. And they want to cut out all, I don't know, all the carbs, all the fun food, right? All the treats, whatever they want to enjoy, right? They consider that's fun for them. But then they won't just have, you know, a bit of salad at their dinner and a little bit of sweets at dinner. They don't want to do just the little stuff because it's not, you know, fun. It's not, what, I can't think of the word, but it's not exciting because I don't feel like they're doing enough. But it's that, it's, you know, the tortoise and the hare story. It's exactly like that. It's about what do you get in the end, who wins. And that's honestly the biggest thing. It's that mindset and then the patience that comes with it. And if you would just have that mindset of lifestyle and you realize there's ups and downs and life isn't perfect, your day won't always be perfect, and that's okay because there's no end artificial, you know, point that it's till you die. And so if you have that mindset, then you don't get as upset when you have, all right, so what? Tomorrow's another day. And it loses that, I don't know, that magic that holds you in that prison. You know what I mean? That mindset. Patience. We see this in life with everything, right? People want quick, get rich quick. Why do they keep falling for it? It's just the patience. It's the steady plodding that people don't want to put into it, you know. And the other thing is planning, developing the routine. These sort of all tie in together. But yeah, planning, developing that routine. Like I get up every day and I don't have to motivate myself to brush my teeth because that's just part of my routine when I wake up. And so it's the same thing. I've developed, you know, I've planned in, developed routine with being active and you know, incorporating nutritious foods into my diet, making sure I'm having a good range of foods, variety. And that's all you need to do, really. It's really not, as my husband would say, rocket surgery.
Yeah. Rocket surgery.
Yeah.
Very true, man.
Covering all bases.
Absolutely. And I often use this phrase of your health is like a value. It's a lifestyle, as you mentioned, and it's kind of like a horizon. And it's not something we can ever achieve in the sense of we can tick the box. We've done it now. I'm healthy now. I don't have to worry about it now. Like I can just do whatever I want. No, it's an ongoing journey, and we're heading towards the horizon. And what helps us to get there or to go in that direction is that health value and that lifestyle that we're heading in that direction. And on the journey, we have goals and achievable targets. And this works in any lifestyle change or adjustment where we can actually look back and say, oh, look how far I've come. You know, look at where I'm at today and look where I'm going to be in the next, 3-6 months, and there's this hope on the horizon. There's always this kind of driving towards this goal of value that we have. And I think that's the key shift that you're talking about, the mindset there. It's be patient, have a plan, have some clear set goals that you can aim towards. But in all of that, it's kind of just taking away the emotional guilt and condemnation that we put on ourselves from food and, societal pressures and all of that. And just really having this kind of, just a healthy relationship with food and with our diets and everything in that sense. So, yeah.
That's a big one, to let go of perfect, and as someone that I like to, I don't know if I'm a perfectionist or not, but I like things to be a certain way, and you have to let go of that. It's not, it works against you, and you can't, there's no such thing as perfect. So realizing there's no perfect body, there's no perfect diet, there's no perfect, exercise plan. It's just like you were saying, I love that analogy, what you were saying with the horizon, but you have to let go of perfect. That's a really big one that especially women, they put on themselves. And it hasn't helped you till now, So
That's a great question, because a lot of the time people will be resistant
yeah,
even when they come to me for assistance. I'm sharing similar things to what you're sharing as well. And I mean, there's no magic therapy. There's no magic pill. There's no, magic word that I'm going to tell someone or you're going to share with them that's going to just, everything will be perfect. It's really similar principles and approaches to help people make these changes. And they're resistant. They're like, no, that's not, I've tried that, or so how you're approaching it now, how's that working for you? And kind of, for me, that's, it's harsh sometimes. You can come across as, oh, you're just attacking me, but it's not. It's actually really looking at, how can you actually help someone grow through this experience? And I'm often looking at what I have been doing has led me to this point. I need to make some sort of change. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to get the same results.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. So just recapping on that, mindset, having a patience attached to that as well. There's no perfect diet. There's no perfect way of doing it. There are principles and things that we've talked about today that will help you to achieve that. And then planning, having a framework around it, whether you're journaling what you're eating, whether you're writing things on the wall, you have these little steps towards what you want to achieve. And make sure that they're SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and they have a time frame attached to it. There's all these different aspects to it, which I'm sure that we've touched on, and people can get a better hold of it through what we've talked about. I guess just to finish up there, Naomi, did you have any final thoughts or ways that you can help people achieve their goals? Any final thoughts on that?
I guess knowledge is power, and watching Netflix is not informing yourself. Documentaries are made for entertainment as much as you think maybe you don't think they are. Again, money is behind everything. So be aware of that. There's always something attached. So, but knowledge is power, and that means informing yourself via the actual professionals in that field. So, if you really are struggling with this, go and see a dietitian that, especially that if you're having eating disordered patterns, or even that poor relationship with food, there's dietitians that specialize in this field. Knowledge is huge, and there is so much free stuff online too, that you can even go on dietitian websites. There's an official website. They've got awesome in Australia, the DAA. It's awesome. It's got so many Q&As on there. With hot topics, and there's so much already you can inform yourself, and it's not from someone trying to sell you something, and that's where you can get, I guess, unadulterated free information. There's no something attached to it. Knowledge, and also I would say, if this is something that maybe you feel is beyond you, accountability. So there's a reason why I personally coach women, and oftentimes I've had coaches for myself, and I'm a dietitian. I'm the expert in food and nutrition and health, and yet I noticed I needed that extra accountability that wasn't emotional. And so, I think for so many people, having a coach, not necessarily their whole life at all, but having that accountability, someone to hold them accountable, even if it is their partner, their wife, their husband, their parent, that's huge to do. Or a close friend, someone that loves you and that will actually keep you accountable. That, even if you start with that, that's huge, just to say, look, I really need help with this. Let's come up with something that I can, just work on this week. And if I didn't hit it, that's okay. Why didn't I hit it? What was around all that? And so that's huge, just that accountability. And also, we talked about already, developing routines. I don't believe in this motivation myth. You don't look for it when it's going to come and fall from the sky. And it's just, you develop the routines, and you don't live based on the feelings. The feelings come. But developing those routines, you get up, if you know that you've planned to exercise in the morning, go for a walk, for example, you get your clothes for the night before, you pack them ready to go, and you put your alarm. When the alarm rings, you get up and you go. You don't think, do I feel like it? You just do it like you would if you're going to your job. And so these little routines, over time, you'll notice they become your habits, and then they just become ingrained into your lifestyle, where it feels weird if you're not doing it. So it's these little things that I think are the way to achieve the goals.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'll make a note of that in the description section on this video. So guys, feel free to click down there and have a look at these different steps that Naomi shared with us today. And I'll also have, Naomi, how do we get in touch with you if people want to get in touch with you? Are you taking on new clients? Are you open to that? Or how do people find out more about what you do?
I do and I don't. So I have a very limited amount of people I like to work with at once, because I want to actually be there for them. So yes, I am open to it. We have to see if we fit each other, but yeah, if you want to contact me, I probably will just put it in the naomihealthcoaching@gmail.com. We'll put it in the thing there. And you can look me up on Facebook at Transformation Health Coaching. That's something that I sometimes post up if I have time with my clients. So yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. And look, I really appreciate your time, and thanks for taking the time to share about this vitally important topic and really helping people appreciate the physical, mental, and social, and even spiritual aspects of what we've shared today about their health and their goals, and really living in that balance. In Scripture it talks about, Paul says in 1 Thessalonians 5:23, I think it is, he says, I pray, God, that your whole spirit, soul, and body be preserved blameless and be healthy and have that balance. So God cares about it, we care about it, and I pray that this has blessed you guys and helps you to go for it and live that balanced lifestyle. So be blessed, guys. Feel free to check out the description, get in touch with Naomi. She's awesome, and she's got some really good resources on her Facebook, on her website, and different things there. So hope this has blessed you, and take care.
Thank you.